Okay, folks, I looked up teetotum, and it was worth waiting for. I'm glad I looked it up, because otherwise I would have been missing something really funny in this story. So where it says here, are you a child or a teetotum? A teetotum is a small spinning top, like when you would spin like for a game. And the definition said with 4 sides lettered to determine whether the spinner has won or lost. There were a lot of different pictures that came up, so I don't know that it has to have 4 sides. But what a funny thing to say. Are you a child or a top? Are you a child or a spinner? Are you a child or a teetotum? The sheep said, as she took up another pair of needles. You'll make me giddy soon if you go on turning them around like that, because she was spinning, so that's why she called her that. That's too much. She was now working with 14 pairs at once, and Alice couldn't help looking at her in great astonishment. How can she knit with so many? The child thought to herself. She gets more and more like a porcupine every minute. Can you row? The sheep asked, handing her a pair of knitting needles as she spoke. Yes, a little, but not on land and not with needles, Alice was beginning to say, when suddenly the needles turned into oars in her hands, and she found they were in a little boat, gliding along between banks, so there was nothing for it to do but her best. Feather! Cried the sheep as she took up another pair of needles. This didn't sound like a remark that needed any answer, so Alice said nothing, but pulled away. There was something very queer about the water, she thought, as every now and then the oars got fast in it and could hardly come out again. Feather, feather! The sheep cried again, taking more needles. You'll be catching a crab directly. A dear little crab, thought Alice. I should like that. Did you hear me say feather? The sheep cried angrily, taking up quite a bunch of needles. Indeed I did, said Alice. You've said it very often and very loud. Please, where are the crabs? In the water, of course, the sheep said, sticking some of the needles into her hair as her hands were full. Feather, I say. Why do you say feather so often? Alice asked, rather vexed. I am not a bird. You are, said the sheep. You're a little goose. This offended Alice a little. So there was no more conversation for a minute or two while the boat glided gently on, sometimes among beds of weeds, which made the oars stick fast in the water worse than ever, and sometimes under trees, but always with the same tall river banks frowning over their heads. Oh, please, there are some scented rushes, Alice cried in a sudden transport of delight. There really are, and such beauties. You needn't say please to me about 'em, the sheep said without looking up from her knitting. I didn't put 'em there, and I'm not going to take 'em away. But I meant, please, may we wait and pick some? Alice pleaded. If you don't mind stopping the boat for a minute. How am I to stop it? Said the sheep. If you leave off rowing, it'll stop of itself. So the boat was left to drift down the stream as it would, till it glided gently in among the waving rushes, and then the little sleeves were carefully rolled up, and the little arms were plunged in elbow deep to get the rushes a good long way down before breaking them off, and for a while Alice forgot all about the sheep and the knitting, as she bent down over the side of the boat with just the ends of her tangled hair dipping into the water, while with her bright eager eyes she caught at one bunch after another of the darling scented rushes. I only hope the boat won't tipple over, she said to herself. Oh, what a lovely one, only I couldn't quite reach it, and it certainly did seem a little provoking, almost as if it had happened on purpose, she thought. That, though, she managed to pick plenty of beautiful rushes as the boat glided by. There was always a more lovely one that she couldn't reach. The prettiest are always further, she said at last, with a sigh at the obstinacy of the rushes in growing so far off. As with flushed cheeks and dripping hair and hands, she scrambled back to her place and began to arrange her newfound treasures. What mattered it to her then that the rushes had begun to fade and to lose all their scent and beauty from the very moment that she picked them? Even real scented rushes, you know, last only a very little while, and these, being dream rushes, melted away almost like snow as they lay in heaps at her feet. But Alice hardly noticed this. There were so many other curious things to think about. They hadn't gone much farther before the blade of one of the oars got fast in the water and wouldn't come out again, so Alice explained it afterwards. And the consequence was that the handle of it caught her under the chin, and in spite of a series of little shrieks of "Oh, oh, oh!" from poor Alice, it swept her straight off the seat and down among the heap of rushes. However, she wasn't hurt, and was soon up again. The sheep went on with her knitting all the while, just as if nothing had happened. That was a nice little crab you caught, she remarked, as Alice got back into her place, very much relieved to find herself still in the boat. Was it? I didn't see it, said Alice, peeping cautiously over the side of the boat into the dark water. I wish I hadn't let it go. I should so like to see a little crab to take home with me. But the sheep only laughed scornfully and went on with her knitting. Are there many crabs here? Said Alice. Crabs and all sorts of things, said the sheep. Plenty of choice, only make up your mind. Now what do you want to buy? To buy? Alice echoed in a tone that was half astonished and half frightened, for the oars in the boat and the river had vanished all in a moment, and she was back again in the little dark shop. I should like to buy an egg, please, she said timidly. How do you sell them? 5 pence farthing for 1, 2 pence for 2, the sheep replied. Then 2 are cheaper than 1, Alice said in a surprised tone, taking out her purse. Only you must eat them both if you buy 2, said the sheep. Then I'll have 1, please, said Alice, as she put the money down on the counter, for she thought to herself, they mightn't be at all nice, you know. The sheep took the money and put it away in the box. Then she said, I never put things into people's hands. That would never do. You must get it for yourself. Hey, that's just like what's going on right now in the pandemic of 2020. We're not exchanging things by hands. We're setting it down for people to grab. That's just what happens here. And so saying, she went off on the other end of the shop and set the egg upright on the shelf. I wonder why it wouldn't do, thought Alice, as she groped her way among the tables and chairs, for the shop was very dark toward the end. The egg seemed to get further away the more I walked towards it. Let me see. Is this a chair? Why, it's got branches, I declare. How very odd to find trees growing here. And actually, here's a little brook. Well, this is the very queerest shop